I've been playing guitar for more than 40 years, and today I'm going to show you how to play Raven Wing by Iced Earth. Good morning, and thank you for dropping in to play some guitar with me here on the couch. Boy, do we have a good one for you today. Today's song is one that's just a little bit outside my normal musical range here on the channel. Raven Wing is a song from the American metal band Iced Earth, a band that enjoyed great success both here at home and abroad. A band that grew a huge worldwide following over their 30-plus year career as an active touring band. Started in 1985 and led by founding member and guitarist Jon Schaffer, the band produced 12 original studio albums, plus live albums and compilations. And please stick with me after the lesson when we will have Jon Schaffer here with us as our first ever special guest on the couch to help us with our final thoughts. For now, let's jump right in and learn Raven Wing's acoustic intro riff. Our song is in E-flat standard tuning, which means every string on the guitar is tuned down 1/2 step. So your low E string should sound like this. And then all the other strings are tuned in relation to that E-flat down 1/2 step. And that's pretty common in a lot of heavier music, gives the song a little bit of a darker or a sadder feel maybe. The very first chord is going to be an E minor, but instead of playing it how we're used to, I have it on good authority that it's played like this. Let me start out by playing through the pattern one time, and then we'll go back and talk about it and show you how it's played. And then it starts over. So in all those chords, the only thing that I'm fretting are the A and the D string, and it's a simple power chord, just a 1/5 dyad, for those who know what that means. The first one, the E, my index finger is on the 7th fret of the A, my ring finger is on the 9th fret of the D. Play straight down all the strings. And then I jump up 1.5 steps to this G for a single down strum. And then all the way down to a D at frets 5 and 7. Now, For the G and the D and everything but really the E, I'm using my index finger. I'm blocking the low E string with the pad of that finger. So some people mute it or block it by wrapping your middle finger over the top. I do it just by, so all you're hearing there is the A string. That E string is just kind of clunking. So again, once we get done there at the D, we go up to the E for one strum down, down to a C, back to the E for one, to the D. Now this time on the last D, we don't go up for a single strum down, but we just carry ourselves back up to the E. That's the pattern, repeats over and over. And when the song's played live, they don't actually play it on acoustic. I'm only using an acoustic for this part because there is an acoustic that gets played on the record. I know when it's live, both guitarists play an electric guitar, and I know that a lot of you will be playing the entire thing on electric guitar also. So we just need to set up a good clean acoustic tone on our amp and have the ability to switch between the two. Then we're going to go into the chugs here on the, just an E5 really, an E flat 5. It's about that speed. I'm just fretting the second fret of the A and the D strings, and I'm mainly concentrating on playing the E, which is open, and the A at the second fret. And if I hit that D, that's okay too. Goes through that for several measures, and then the vocalist comes in with no, no, no. It does that 2 times. No, 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 no. After the second one, we have this little lick. So that is on the A string. It is palm muted, and it is the 5th fret is the first note, and then we have 3 notes real fast on the 7th fret. We do that twice. And then the third time we just do 7 2 times. And again, it's important to palm mute that as well. And then that starts us into what's going to become the chorus, which is this. So that starts out with open A and D 3 times, and then I hammer on at the 2nd fret to the A and D, and then I'm going to chug on the E and the A strings, and then I'm hitting the actual chords without palm muting between the chugs. Then I go up here to this G that we played earlier. It follows the same basic pattern as the intro riff, but instead of just playing this 1 time, I'm going to play it 3 times. Then I slide down here to this D dyad, so at the 5th and the 7th fret of the A and the D strings, and I'm palm muting between the chords. chugging on the A, palm muted, and then the chords unmuted. And then I go up to the E for 3 times, down to the C, and then I'm going to work my way back up to the D. And then back to open. Back to the G. Back to the C. Back to the D. And then that starts us, the first time we go through that, there's no singing. But later on, that is going to be our, primarily our chorus. While that is playing, there is also, in the background, there's this little fill. Couple different ways to play that there, I guess. Kind of, to me, it sounds like it changes or slightly different, but it's basically 7 on the A to 5 on the D, back to 7 on the A, 5 on the A, 7 on the A, 5 on the D, 7 on the A. Then it resolves 4-5 on the D. Got some minor bends, a little bit of vibrato, and a little bit of palm muting in there too. So pay close attention to those nuances. Another way we can do it is this. So instead of going 7-5-7, I just went 5-7. Or you can leave out that 5 and just do this. But I think on the record, most of the time it's this. So it goes back and forth between the A and the D. 7A, 5D, 7A, 5A, 7A, 5D, 7A. To the 4-5. Again, that's just a little fill that plays in the background while the chorus is playing, or while that main riff is playing without even any singing. The verse is this. So again, that starts out the same as the chorus did, with the 3 opens on the A and the D. Hammer it on at 2, and then the chugs. But we go back to that. The first time through, we do it 4 times. The second time through, we do it 3 times. And then the tail to this riff is this. So again, that G dyad, we're going to play it 3 times, but we're going to slide down a half step. And then we go down here to the D dyad. Next, we're going to go, so that's, we're at, this is actually a G minor or an F sharp, sliding up to the G, and then we go to the E. So the first one again is 10 and 12, slide down to 9 and 11, down to 5 and 7. Second one is 9 and 11. We're going to slide up to 12, and then we're going to go to 7 and 9. Goes through that twice before going back into the... So before we make a run at this fantastic solo, let me give you a quick disclaimer. First of all, there's zero instructional resources that I can find on how to play the solo. I did find one tab for the song, but it is not perfect and the solo is not included in it. The other thing I'd ask you to keep in mind is that the lead guitarist on this record, Jake Dreyer, is a masterful sweep picker. I am not. Jake plays very fast and very precise. I do not. There are parts, and I might even venture to say most of the solo, that I feel like I've got pretty much right on the money. There are some licks, however, that are so fast I can't even decipher the notes that he's playing. So when we get to those, I'm going to give you what I feel like is a pretty reasonable facsimile. As always, take what you like and leave the rest. Let's get started. First note, I'm going to bend up the B. And before we do that, let me say this. The solo is kind of in two halves. The first half, the rhythm guitar, Jon Schaffer, he's playing the intro riff, so the acoustic chords from that intro riff in the first half, which is kind of slow and meandering and pretty easy to play and figure out. The second half, he goes into playing power chords, Jon does, and then Jake gets much faster and starts the sweep picking. So in this very first part, we're going to start with a bend up on 10 on the B string. When I come down, I'm going to pull off to 7. I've also got more delay on the solo than I do the rest of the guitar parts, which is how the record is. But it sounds like this. And then that pull off, that quick pull off, from 10 to 7 is going to actually kind of be part of the sound, that delay as it decays. Then we have this, or something close to it. When I play those, it's kind of a triplet feel, so I'm counting 1, 2, 3. My first 1 is 7 on the D string. My 2, 3 is going to be 4, 5 on the G. And then I go 7 on the G for my next one. And then 5, 7 on the B for my 2, 3. And then 8 on the B is my next one. 5, 7 on the E string are my next 2, 3. Now I'm going to start coming back down. I'm going to go 8, 7, 5 on the E, 8, 7, 5 on the B, and then 7, 5, 4 on the G. And wind up with a slow bend up on 7 of the B. And as that comes down, we're going to ride that bend back down, pull off to 7, and then we're going to hit 7 on the G. Then we have this. That's 5, 7, 8, and then we slide all the way up to 15, all on the B string. Then we have this. That is a rake at the 12th fret, so I'm barring strings 1 through 4 at 12. I'm palm muting. The first few notes, the first 3 notes actually, are going to be heavily muted. The only note that I really want to sound is that 12th fret of the E string. And then I'm going to go 12, 14, 15, 14, 12, 14, and then a full step bend on 17. And I bring it back down, I play it with some vibrato, and then I have 17, 15, 14, 15 on the E string. I'm going to hit 15 again and slide to 12. Next lick is this. That is 15 to 12 on the B, 12 on the G, 12 on the B, and then slide down to 10. And then we have this. And that kind of ends the slow part. So that's a bend up at 7 of the B. I'm going to ride it back down slowly, pull off to 5 on the B, and then wind up at 7 on the G. And then I go back to 5 on the B. And you might even play that 2 or 3 times as it's kind of ringing, because we're starting to get into the fast part. We're leading up to that. So again, that is this. Fast part starts, the power chords kick in, and we're going to start with 2 bends up on the 15th fret of the B string. Then we have a real fast sweep picking section. So I'm going to give you my reasonable facsimile, which is going to be this. That is 12, 14, 15, 17, 15, 14, 12, all on the E, back to 15 on the B, 12 on the B, 15 on the B, 12 on the B, and then I wind up at 14 on the G. And then it goes down here. That is a bend up at 10 on the B string, write it down, pull off to 7, and then wind up back at 10 unbent with vibrato. Then we have another fast run lick, sort of like that first fast run that we have, but instead of counting triplets, 1, 2, 3s, these are 1, 2, 3, 4s. So the way I'm going to do it is something like this. So I'm going 7 on the D, and then my 2, 3, 4 is going to be 4, 5, 7 on the G. Then I'm going to hit 7 on the G again, and then 5, 7, 8 on the B. And then I'm going to have 5, 7, 8, 10 for 1, 2, 3, 4 on the E string, and I'm going to wind up at 12 on the E. Then I have this, or a pretty close facsimile. So I think when Jake plays it, he's actually playing trills, so something like that, and then going up each time. I'm playing 4 or 5 times at each spot. I'm starting at 11 on the G. I'm going 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, 19, 20. And our last lick is this. Starts out at 21 on the D, to 19 on the G, to 21 on the G, to 19 on the B. That is, starts out at 21 on the D, 19 on the B, 21 on the G, 19 on the B, 20 to 19 on the B, 22 on the B, 19 on the B, 20 on the B, 19 on the B, back to 21 on the G, back to 19 on the B, and then we're going to bend up 22 of the B. Before we talk about the bridge, I want to take just a second to show you the chord progression that Jon plays during the fast part of the solo. Again, the slow part of the solo is just the intro riff that we learned earlier, the acoustic section. Then it picks up speed and goes into the fast section, and he does this. and that launches us into the bridge, which is kind of a fast section too. But that is an E power chord, an E5 chord, down to a C, to a D, and then it's B, C, D. Does that twice. After the second time, we start the bridge section, which is this. I'm doing all downstrokes because that's what I can do. On the record, they are alternate picking the whole thing, and they're very good at what they do. I kind of have a newfound respect and admiration for the metal guys because they are very fast and very precise, especially at the alternate picking. Notes though, the first one is 5 on the A and, I'm sorry, 7 on the A and 5 on the D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 at 5 on the D. Back to 7 on the D. And then we pull off 7 to 5 and we slide down to 4 on the D. So it's kind of the same pattern now, but instead of a whole step, it's a half step, and we're at 5 and 4. So 5 on the A string, 4 on the D string, 5 on the D string, and then we go back to 5 on the A. And then we go down to 3 and 2, and we do the same thing. And then back to 4 and 5. All of that should be palm muted. And that's an important note too there. The very first one, when we're at 5 and 7, we have that pull off and slide down. The other ones are just pulling off and going back to the note. After it goes through that a couple times, it goes back into the chorus section of the song. Goes through the chorus 4 times, I think. It's a little bit longer than the normal choruses are. Then at the very end of the song, it has one last complete cycle of the bridge. And then it has this. So that's just 5 on the A string to 7, back to 5, and then 2 more at 7. Also heavily palm muted, and that is how the song ends. Normally when I learn a new song to teach here on the channel, I start by compiling all of the available resources, tabs, tutorials, videos, anything I can find. Then I combine the best parts from each, and sometimes it takes all that plus my ear just to get a complete song tutorial. But for today's song, there just wasn't much out there. And what is there isn't super accurate or complete. So for the parts I couldn't figure out on my own, I decided to do something completely different. I asked the guy who wrote the song. I am grateful and honored to have as our first guest ever here on Riffs from the Couch, Iced Earth founder, guitarist, songwriter, and a person that I'm proud to call a friend and a brother in Christ, Jon Schaffer. Jon, thanks so much for your help with the song, and thanks for dropping by today to help us with final thoughts.
My pleasure, man.
One of the things that I always do in this segment is I try to talk about the song and its subject matter and maybe share any insight that I may have gleaned into the inspiration for the writing of the song. To me, Raven Wing represents the spiritual warfare that we read about in Ephesians 6. The fact that there really is a battle raging between the forces of light and darkness, that there really is an unseen spirit realm functioning all around us. Can you share with us what inspired you to write Raven Wing and maybe what the song means to you?
Yeah, that was years ago that I wrote that song, but I was not a Christian then. My journey has been, it's a long story, and we'll get into that with my testimony at church. But going to this song, I remember I was in writing, the whole writing period for Incorruptible, and I went to a doctor's appointment very early, and I'd already been up late the night before. And I figured I would come back and take a nap before I started the process, and it was about 8:30 a.m. when I got back home and got to the studio, and I started working. I just had tons of energy and just blasted through this piece of music. But when I opened the new session on Pro Tools, for whatever reason, I titled it Raven Wing, and then I started building the song up, and I was supposed to have an appointment that day with the artist that was doing the album cover. We were going to go over the layout and the design and everything, and I worked right through. I mean, I never even got up to use the bathroom. It was really bizarre. By the time I looked at the clock, it was like 4:30 or something like that, and I realized I'd missed the appointment. And I have a clock on my computer, so I was just in the zone and started building the ideas up. And so that was just the musical framework. And often when I'm writing songs, it starts with a title or at least a concept, and I try to make the musical landscape fit whatever that is going to be. That's just the way I've always worked, or for most of my career. And then, oddly enough, I went to my massage therapist, who's a Reiki specialist, and she's also a Christian. And after I'd put this music together, I called my artist and I said, "I'm really sorry about being late." And man, he knows I never miss appointments. And but he's also an artist, so he knows about being in the zone. And a few days later, I went to see her, and she said, "You have a giant raven around you, and you need to look into that. It's your spirit guide." And I just thought, okay, that's weird, because she didn't know anything about the song that I was putting together. So then I did, some research on that, and because there's a lot of Native American lore that leads to the raven and the Vikings and stuff, and it kind of set me on a direction lyrically where I was going to go. But a lot of times when I would be writing, it comes. Like I never really understood where it was coming from. And I think that through my career that God has been trying to get my attention, and it's been coming through in ways that I still don't understand. Sure. You know what I mean? But now that I look back, and even as dark as some of the material has been, there was always this hunger and thirst for righteousness there, but I was a rebel, and so it's just very interesting, everything that's transpired, and to look back at all of it, and I feel like there's a lot more going on. So in terms of the spiritual warfare thing, I think you could see that. I agree with you that there's a message there that no matter how dark it gets, and I have this has been and maybe it's a little too early to talk about this, but Romans 8:28 has been a really important one for me. And when I think about, we're talking about the lyrics of the song, so I'm going to read it. It's 28 through 30. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And these whom he predestined, he also called. And these whom he called, he also justified. And these whom he justified, he also glorified.
Amen.
And I think there's, you know, it's a, I don't know, God works in mysterious ways.
Yes,
and I know that song had a lot of impact on the fan base. It was a pretty successful song. You know, I've written hundreds of songs, and there's been a lot that have helped people through difficult times. And I think this one hit people on different levels. So obviously at the time, I hadn't experienced and didn't have the spiritual faith that I have now, but I look back at it and I feel like it was God trying to get my attention.
Yes, sir. I sincerely appreciate Romans 8:28 and 29. I stand on those myself when things get very tough, which they often do in this life.
Yes.
So the other thing that I always do in this segment is I always talk about Jesus. And speaking about difficult things, I know over the past few years you've been through some very difficult trials. I wonder what role your relationship with Christ played in helping you to get through those things, or what impact those circumstances had on your relationship with him.
Well, I would say that as brutal as it's been in the big picture, it's been the biggest gift of my life to go through this. Not only for the cause, but for the fact that it is what led me to Christ.
Amen.
You know, it took, my life's journey has been incredible. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And so it's like it took that to break my stubborn. I was very stubborn, very, very hard-headed and very driven. But I realized that all the things that I've been writing about and the sort of the warnings and stuff through the catalog and various projects, and that I feel like God was working through me and I didn't even know it.
Sure.
And so when I was locked up in solitary, the only book that I could get was a Bible, and even that request took about 3 weeks to get it. And I started reading, and you know, because I was a Christian when I was a kid, then I went to a religious school, and things changed for me after that experience. And I'll get into more of that in my testimony. But if it wasn't for this, I'm certain that I was on a path to destruction, and that it took this in this time, these years of solitude, to understand and learn. And I'm still learning. I have a lot to learn. I think there's a lot to the Bible, but I look at the Bible as we're in a fallen state, and the Bible is like the operator's manual to help you not just live but thrive in the fallen state. And Jesus is the only way. That is absolutely clear to me now. And this has come in various steps of I've always been awake to corruption and held very strong views against government corruption and what's happening and this level. But when you start to understand it from a biblical standpoint, then it gets real, and that's when it's like the dots start connecting. And I just feel like, without getting too deep in the weeds about everything that happened, if it wasn't for what happened, I would not have been saved and called by Christ. And I feel like this is the beginning of a new chapter. I don't know what that looks like, and that's okay, because he's in the driver's seat. So
thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I know a lot of times it takes being at the bottom before we look up, right?
yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like to share with anybody that might be watching this video at home right now?
I think it's we're in an unprecedented period of time for humanity, and I just strongly encourage you to look at Jesus' teachings, what he stood for, what he died for, what he rose for, and realize that regardless of how horrible things may appear, there is a way out, and it will bring you a sense of peace that you cannot possibly imagine. And that's, when you're in the fallen state, you have no clue. But
Amen.
When you see that pathway and when it's in you, it brings a level of calm and strength that it's just hard to put into words until it happens.
I remember when he gave me the eyes to see, and it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much. I know that John and I would both encourage you to pick Jesus. We'd both encourage you to seek him with all of your heart. If you like what I'm doing here, I'll ask that you give me a thumbs up below and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. If you need a new set of strings, or if you'd like to use any of the gear that I use here on this channel, there are affiliate links in the description. I sincerely appreciate your support, and I sincerely hope to see you back again soon, right here on the couch.